Happy Saturday, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, I'm here with Bianca. She's a circular innovation specialist. I'm so excited that she's here and she's going to be educating us on circular economics. So if you're here watching or watching the replay, make sure to let StreamYard have permission to use your name so we'll know who's commenting. And I'm going to let Bianca introduce herself because she's got a wide history of knowledge here and background. So thanks for coming, Bianca, and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. I'm very excited to talk to people, especially since the COVID-19 situation started. I went from public speaking every week to staying at home, trying to take everything digital. So I'm excited to talk to people. And before doing the actual introduction, I'm just gonna say that my name is Bianca Y Michaels and I'm a sustainability consultant by trade, but I'm very passionate about circular economics, so I specialize in that and the zero waste. I'm the leader of the Zero Waste Japan group. I have my own social business called Zero Way, and I've also launched this year a nonprofit organization. And I'll talk about those a little bit in the presentation. So with your permission, I'm going to try to share the screen.
Okay.
Let's see. Doo-doo.
Oh, let me.
All right, let's start. Let me know if you can see it. Can you see my screen?
I can see the screen.
Awesome, yeah. Perfect. So yes, just like your introduction, today I promised to talk about the circular economy. Feel free to ask questions anytime during the presentation. I can hear you, but I can't see you. So please use your voice to ask questions. Like I said, I'm Bianca Y Michaels. I was born in Romania. I grew up in Canada. I came to Japan 10 years ago. So, I've experienced 3 different continents in my life, and that's pretty exciting. I'm what you call an #impactivist. My goal in life is to make as much impact as possible. I used to do public speaking, but now I do digital speaking. I'm a youth advisor, sustainability consultant, circular economy specialist, and social business entrepreneur. As you can see, I've done a lot of public speaking at conferences and community gatherings, universities, corporations. I've already said that I lead the Zero Waste Japan group that has only about 3,000 members. My social business is called the Zero Way. And with this, we're trying to shift the global economy towards a circular one. And lastly, this year, I launched the Heal the World Japan organization, where we are actually targeting Generation Z. So the young ones, we're trying to teach them how to be better global citizens and to, take their future into their own hands and not depend on the grown-ups who got them here. So let's be awesome grown-ups for our youth. Now, anyway, let's get right to it. Today we will be talking about what is the circular economy, how is it better than the current economy, why is it important that we shift our economy, how can we make that shift, and then we're going to have a little Q&A session. Are you ready?
Ready.
Awesome. Well, first of all, let's talk a bit about the product life cycle. Every single product in our lives, if you look around you, absolutely everything starts as raw material. We call this the cradle. So let's take, for example, a t-shirt. I bet everybody in their home has a t-shirt, right? So it starts off as fiber, but before it becomes fiber, obviously it's either made from natural fibers like cotton or plastic fibers like polyester or nylon. And then you have the manufacturing, production, the design company. You have the mass manufacture of the t-shirt, not just the material, the distribution, retail, and then finally it reaches the user. And once the user doesn't have any more use for the product, it gets somehow disposed of, and we call that grave. So our current economy is called from cradle to grave. Now let's continue this talk about our current economy. It's called a linear economy because it's written in a line, as you can see. It starts with the raw materials that we take from our beautiful blue planet. We then mass produce products. We sell the products. Finally, the users buy the product and uses it, and then we dispose of the product, and that disposal becomes waste, and it becomes very dangerous, not just for the planet, but also for us humans. Let me explain. Now, the first three processes, the take, make, sell, are called the production. And inside the corporation, this is also called the supply chain. The other two ones, the use and the disposal, are called the consumption. And this is where we come in. This is where our role is as consumers or users. Now, the dangers of linear economy are very well known. Lately, we've seen a lot of natural disasters occurring, like wildfires, not just in Australia, but also in California, for example. In places where there used to not be forest fires to this degree, and people have lost houses and whatnot. Then we have a plastic problem. Plastic has been now found in almost all animals in the ocean and on land. We have a huge waste problem. As you can see, there are some populations on Earth that has to deal with the waste that we create. And then there's pollution. There's various forms of pollution, air pollution, water pollution, soil, and so on. This is why it is very important for us as consumers to understand why this current linear economy isn't working how it's supposed to be, and it's not doing its job, and why we really need to shift this linear economy to the circular economy. Now, let's continue a bit of discussion to see how the shift is going to happen. If you look closely, you will see a little yellow arrow. In professional terms, it's called the golden arrow, because this is where the transition from the company to the consumer takes place. And this is where also the supply and demand starts to work, where this exchange between the company and the consumer takes place. So let's look out for this arrow right there. The important part is that if you see here, when you sell a product and you buy it, it is called a supply. And then when the consumer buys that product, it sends a message, and that message is called a demand. Now, this demand is very important because this is where our responsibility as consumer becomes vital for the entire economy. Because every time we buy a product, we send a message to the company and we tell the company, hey, we want more of this. There is a need for this. Can you please make more of this? Of course, the company plays a role in trying to trick us to buy some products, right? They make amazing marketing campaigns and they make us feel like we really, really need that product. So as consumers, it is very important to be educated and to understand our own needs and also our spending habits. How is it? So far, so good?
Yeah, it's good. And I didn't know that animals had plastic in them too. I mean, animals that are running around.
Yes.
That's
It
very
has been
sad.
discovered. Yeah, plastic in many sizes, like here in this little bird, and the seagulls, especially countries that are situated on the shores, they have a lot of seagulls, and these seagulls, they think that plastic is food, so they eat it, and then they want to try to pass it on to their younglings. And so the babies, this is actually a baby seagull, so baby seagulls die because their parents passes them trash, basically, instead of food.
That's really sad. I think about that when I see the cigarette butts, because I think I saw that the birds think that that's, that's food for the babies too.
Hmm. And plastic has been discovered in fish, in birds, in frogs, in all sorts of animals, in chickens.
I didn't know it was
So,
so widespread. I just thought usually think about the animals in the ocean, but I don't think about the ones that are, but it's true, I mean, especially little wrappers for candy or something, an animal might think, there might be some candy residue and they would eat the plastic. So it's really sad. You're
yes,
right.
yes. We are affecting, a lot of animals and a lot of children too who don't know any better.
Mm.
Right. So yeah, this is why it's important to be, as a consumer, to be educated. And I want to tell you this, maybe 100 years ago, we didn't have exchange at such speed, exchange of goods at such speed, and we didn't have the ability to communicate with people all over the world and to send products all over the world and to take raw materials from a country, transport those materials to another country, then manufacture it, and then retail it to all around the world, right? So now, we used to trade with our neighbors, with our neighboring towns, or maybe with the people who would come from far away carrying the stuff. Well, so now we have absolutely no control over where the products come from and where they're going, which makes it really, right, difficult as a person to assume responsibility for whatever purchase you make. But rest assured, because there is a solution, and there is a very elegant and simple solution. Now let's see what that is. Now remember, this is the linear economy, right? Take, make, sell, use, dispose. What are the most dangerous parts of this chain? Obviously, taking the raw materials from the earth, because this linear economy was created based on the assumption that we have infinite raw materials to take from the earth. While obviously that's not true, our materials are finite, and one day they will, stop pouring. And when that happens, a lot of problems might occur, like wars, because prices will rise. Um, Many companies will try to fight for your attention, for your money. And of course, the corporations will adapt because they have the ability and the money to adapt, but the consumer is going to have to pay more and more for certain products. So taking the raw materials is very dangerous in itself, and it will continue to create more and more problems in the future. And the second dangerous link in the chain is the disposal part. And you can understand, I mean, it's not rocket science to understand the fact that the products that are wasted, right, are either landfilled, either they're burned and they create CO2 emissions, either they end up in the ocean, and we saw what that does, right, to the animals and the ocean ecosystem. So what do? We basically eliminate those two links from the chain,
Oh,
and we
Bianca.
keep only the make, sell, use part. Yes, go on.
Oh, I don't know if you can see the questions. Can you see them?
I think if I do this, I can see the questions.
Oh, no, I'll read it to you. Someone said,
Okay, perfect.
was this a smaller issue 200 years ago, or not an issue at all, or just now because many of our products are not natural and contain plastic?
Yes, that is correct. So 200 years ago, there was no such problem. Exactly for that reason, because all our products were natural. We didn't have as many. There was no such thing as mass producing products. And everything we had was natural, and everything that is natural can go back into the planetary cycle, right? Even human waste, for example, we didn't flush it down the toilet. Our human waste went back into the fields in the form of fertilizer for the plants. But today, because of all these man-made artificial products, they end up, if you put them back into nature, nature doesn't know what to do with them because they're not natural, right? They're artificial, they're man-made. And if we had like another billion years, maybe nature would adapt and would find ways, like the bacteria that can eat plastic or stuff like that. But unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So yeah, that's one of the reasons that it is a good idea to do what some people say: take 2 steps back, 1 step forward. Go back a little bit into the past and what we used to do then, and try to adapt it to modern day needs.
Mm. All right. Yeah. And then I'd have another comment that says this is super interesting. So it's very interesting. So let's just keep going, and I'll let you know if we get any more questions. So I'll just raise my hand. Sorry to interrupt you, though. I'm really loving this.
No. Please interrupt me at any point. Even if I keep talking, just interrupt me.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Right. So I said we need to eliminate the 2 most dangerous links, which is taking the raw materials from the planet and the disposal or the waste. And how do we do that? We create the circular economy. We take the raw materials only once, which we already took in most part, and we put that in the manufacturing system. Then we you can see a little bit of Japanese there. Sorry, it's just a slide that I made, and it's a picture. It's not actually a slide. It's a picture that I just posted. That's why it has Japanese. Don't get freaked out. So instead of mass manufacturing a product just because we need the money, we actually try to manufacture for circularity. So the moment we decide to design a product, we design it based on the idea that it's going to go into this circular economic system, and we're going to design it in such a way that it doesn't go to waste, that it doesn't create pollution, it doesn't create CO2 emissions, etc., etc. So we design for circularity, then we manufacture for circularity. When we sell it, we're going to sell it using a very sustainable supply chain. And we're going to do something that is called ethical retail, which is basically a type of retail that is based 100% on the customer need and 0% on marketing. So we will not be doing crazy marketing campaigns like Coca-Cola is doing to make you think that you definitely need to drink Coca-Cola, right? And then after the sustainable supply chain and ethical retail, we, instead of wasting that product, instead of disposing of it and, throwing it, quotations, away, we try to use that product in such a way that it goes back into the cycle. So either we reuse it, either we repair it, either we create a product that is maintainable, right? So we create it for maintenance, easy maintenance. Either you refurbish it, like for example, in the case of electronics. Electronics are very complicated because they have a lot of elements inside them and they get updated and upgraded every 1 or 2 years. So even if, what's it called? Intentional obsolescence, the term will come eventually. Even though intentional obsolescence has been regulated by law, your electronics companies are not allowed to do this anymore. They still have to upgrade your devices because data just becomes bigger and bigger, and internet speed becomes faster and faster, and so on. So we need to create, for example, electronics that are easy to made in such a way that it's easy to replace the parts. And that one example for that is the Fairphone. I wish I had a picture. I'm sorry I didn't bring a picture of the Fairphone. You can Google it. It's super interesting. They made a phone, a smartphone that is made of different parts. So every time you upgrade the phone, you can just upgrade the parts. Like you can upgrade just the camera or just the memory card or just the battery. You can replace just the battery.
So you get
Right.
the
And
specific
yes,
part? They
excuse me.
You get a specific part to upgrade, or how do you do that? I don't really understand.
Yes. You buy the phone once, and then every 1 or 2 years, when they upgrade the phone, you get just a specific part that you want. Like for example, the battery, usually, right, like 1 or 2 years, it just becomes it needs to be charged more often. So in that case, you can just send the battery back to the company, and the company will send you a new and improved battery.
Oh, okay. That seems like that would save a lot because all this consumption of the latest phone, and where do those phones end up? I mean, the,
Well, you saw where they end up. Children like this pick
yeah.
them up, and so they end up in developing countries, in the poorer countries, and people there take the electronics and they take them apart, and then they sell only the people don't know, but actually in electronics there's precious metals like gold and copper, and so they take these metals out and they sell them on the market again.
Wow. Well, so when you don't dispose of a phone properly, what happens? I don't know if there's any proper way to dispose of it, but they'll say bring it to the recycle. But what happens when that gets into the earth?
Yes. Well, like I said, any electronic device is full of different types of materials. So an Apple product, for example, is so resistant, is made to last a really long time. And if that isn't disposed properly, it's going to stay there wherever there is. Like, is it either if it's in a landfill or in an e-waste site where people just throw away their electronics without shame. And they're gonna rot there, and they're going to eliminate a lot of toxic materials either into the soil. And people if sorry if you don't know, inside the soil there's sometimes water streams, and sometimes the neighboring towns take that water from the underground water stream and it's already polluted, and they don't filter it and they drink it just like that, full of chemicals from the landfill. Either it releases uh, gases, toxic gases, and those toxic gases, because they go into the air, of course, they can travel absolutely anywhere, polluting our skies and our kids.
Well, I have a question. Someone's
Yes.
asking, what do I do with a big screen TV after I buy a new one? Put it in the landfill, or what option is there?
Right. So depending on the country, every country and also every company. So if it's a proper company who has, you know, done their homework and take proper responsibility for their products, they can take it back and they will then take the television apart, and they will keep all the materials that they don't need, and then will safely dispose in a different fashion, but at least it's in a safe fashion, of the rest of the materials. But there are sometimes repair shops who take those TVs. So if you have a repair shop, you can ask if they take in a TV, and they take it apart and they pick up what they need, and then God knows what happens to the rest. So unfortunately, there is no perfect way of disposing of electronic waste.
Well, that answers a lot of questions, though. What you told me was shocking, because I didn't really think about the effects. I mean, I knew that they would decompose or break down in the soil, but I never thought about the drinking water and all the toxic, all the elements of the phones going into people's drinking water. I mean,
Yeah,
you just don't think about it. You just throw it away and think, oh, whatever. It's terrible, though, right? Yeah. I mean, we have to realize that we're not alone in this, that we have to really step up. So, yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
All right. So go ahead with your discussion, please.
Yeah. And here's the interesting part.
Mm-hmm.
If it's inside the supply chain, remember the take, make, sell part, if it's inside the supply chain, it's called a producer responsibility or a corporate responsibility. And every big corporation and maybe medium corporations have a division called the CSR, corporate responsibility and sustainability. And then in that division is responsible for making sure that the product is sustainably sourced, or they take all the corporate responsibilities into account in order to make a good product. However, after it goes through the golden arrow, so after it goes to the user, the corporate responsibility finishes, and so it becomes a user responsibility. And unfortunately, this is a very nasty way, I'm sorry, I cannot find a better word, a very nasty way for the corporation to not take responsibility for the product that they have manufactured. And so people like me and all the activists out there who are pouring their hearts out, they're trying to push the companies, the corporations, to do what is called the extended producer responsibility. Okay, so extended means to extend the responsibility beyond the user and all the way to the disposal link. So this is, again, one place where we as users need to kind of push the corporations to take that extended responsibility further than their own supply chain. Now, how do we do that? I'm going to explain later, so I don't want to ruin the surprise.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. We made a circular economy together. So yeah, that's what happens. We manufacture for circularity. We have a sustainable supply chain, ethical retail, use, repair, maintain a product. Also refurbish, because that's, I think, how the discussion started about the Fairphone. You can refurbish a phone. You can take an already existent product, you take it back to the company, and the company refurbishes it in the sense that it creates a new product with absolutely the same quality, but from the old materials. And now, as you can see, the little gray part over there, I wrote collection. This is something that companies have a very hard time doing because collection is usually very expensive. So the companies are trying to push this collection link to the user. So the user has the responsibility to dispose of the product, to send the product back to the company. This is where companies really don't want to pay for the collection. So it is very important for us as consumers to push those companies to create collection services. And we have to be very careful about this greenwashing of collection services because, for example, in the fashion industry, companies like H&M, they have recycle boxes, but what they don't tell you is that those recycle boxes, they actually take when they collect those boxes, they take maybe 1% or 5% of the clothes that are really, really good, in really good condition, and then they will throw away the rest. They will either burn them, and many corporations like H&M and Uniqlo and Zara, they burn them, because if they don't burn them, if they don't turn them into either ash or trash, if they sell them, for example, then the consumer won't buy the new products. They will want to buy the second-hand products. So this process is called cannibalization. So companies don't want their old products to cannibalize, to eat away from their new product sales. So yeah.
That makes sense though. I mean, yeah. It's a lot of waste
Right?
going on. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And people need clothes, so it's really sad that this is happening.
Yes. And the thing is that even the clothes that, for example, if you have in America Goodwill, right, or Salvation Army, you take in 10 clothes, and out of those 10 clothes, maybe one reaches another person, and the rest is probably sent to a developing countries. The problem is that developing countries now already have so many clothes, they just don't need any more of them.
So what? Then they burn them?
They burn them, yes. Most of them, they burn them, or they just trash them.
Mm.
Like they throw them in the regular trash where, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It is. So fast fashion is one thing that we should very much think about. I personally haven't bought a new clothes in maybe 5 years. Everything I own right now is secondhand. And
yeah, I think about that too. Yeah, the way to go. Go ahead.
let me tell you, like, when I find something that's awesome and I think like, wow, I would never have found such a nice dress if I were to go to my regular, clothes shopping centers, or whatever they're called now, boutiques.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it is. You can find all sorts of little exciting surprises that you wouldn't expect. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And sometimes you can even, get a completely new style based on the clothes that you discover.
Yeah, I found this really nice beaded dress. It was just the top of it was beaded. It was I found it at, I think, Goodwill or somewhere. It was perfect for a wedding. It was really I don't know what era it was from, but it really stood out, and I got so many compliments on it. It was it's beautiful. I love it, and
Wow.
I never found that. I went shopping in the regular stores, but I wanted something different, and there it was, this beautiful beaded dress, and it was definitely something that it's going to stay part of my wardrobe forever.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to see it now. Yeah, I'm curious if people know about the SDGs, about the Sustainable Development Goals.
I don't know about that. What is that?
So the Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals proposed by the United Nations and accepted, signed by all of the countries in the world. 17 goals that we have to achieve by 2030. So see this circle right here on the left, it had 17 colors. Mm-hmm. Those colors represent the goals, and of course you can Google them. You can find them literally everywhere. They're very popular right now. And 6 years ago, so this the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, were signed in 2015 in the Paris Agreement, and probably you've heard about this Paris Agreement because Trump got out of it during the Trump administration, and now Biden is trying so hard to get back in the Paris Agreement. So
Yes, I heard of that.
yeah.
Yeah, that was terrible that we got out of it. So yeah.
Yeah, the only country in the world who got out of it. So thankfully, yeah, the most wasteful country in the world is the one who got out, right?
Well, hopefully
Which is
things are
sad.
shifting.
America, yeah. Go on.
I just said I've got to look up the SDGs.
Yes. And inside those SDGs, number 12, this mustard color that I don't like, but I have no choice. This mustard color is the representative of the circular economy. You can see a little 8, a little infinite sign, which means to cycle to infinity. So to be sustainable, to be circular. And it means sustainable production, and responsible consumption. Now, this is how the circular economic model actually looks like. So it doesn't look like this. This is a very, very simple model that I made for you so that it's easy to understand, but actually it looks like this. And I'm going to tell you what this means in 2 minutes. You see how there's 2 colors, there's blue and there's green. This is called a butterfly model because it looks like a butterfly, right? It has like 2 wings. Now the blue part is about technical materials, which is basically all the technology that we have, and everything that is artificial and man-made goes inside the technical material cycle. So what we do is we take the raw material, we manufacture, we produce a product, right? We retail it, and then you have the really small loops, and then they get bigger and bigger, right? So the user, as you can see, the responsibility falls on the user. You either maintain a product, which means using it for a long time and repairing it. Either you reuse it or redistribute it or, use it for something else. Either you refurbish it or remanufacture it, so you send it back to the company or back to a factory and they create a new product. And lastly, you recycle it. When everything else fails, we have recycling. And so the smaller the loop, the better, the more eco-friendly the product is or the process is. So it's better to maintain and repair, right? Rather than recycle. Now let's look at the green part. It says biological materials. That's because everything that is made from nature, that is natural, and is able to go back into nature is called a biological material. And this goes for all of the products that are made of wood or plants or sometimes animals. And again, we have the raw materials. We manufacture a product, we sell it, and then the consumer can either do one of 2 things. It can either take the product and take it through a biological or chemical process in which the material gets modified again, or it goes to a process that is more natural. So it's not a chemical process, it's more natural, and it's for example, composting, right? And this one, as you can see, has little tiny loops that are called cascades. I'm not going to go into more detail because it's already too complicated. But what I want to say is that obviously the biological material loop is much simpler and much easier to cycle, right? So this is why it is very important for us as consumers to try to use as many natural biological products as possible compared to the technical products. And I'm going to explain that in a second, what it means to us as consumers. Now, how do we shift the economy, right? We had the linear economy all the way up here, and we have the circular economy. The first thing that we saw was collection, right? So we need to collect all the products in a sustainable way and take those products to the next level. And the best level that you can take them is the smaller loop. Either it's biological, and I said here as an example, coffee grounds. You can take the coffee grounds, which are made from coffee, and take them through the green loop. And what do? Is the first loop was um, a, a chemical reaction, and you can make coffee mugs, by the way. If you didn't know that, I'm telling you right now, you can make coffee mugs out of coffee grounds.
I never knew that.
Right? So you can create a product directly out of biological waste.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Right? And then, so that was the green part. And then you can take, you can either use biological materials like plants, or like wood, bamboo, or animal products, which I personally don't recommend because, well, like as a person, I'm a vegan, so I don't recommend products that are cruel towards animals. And as a sustainability consultant, again, I have to protect the biosphere, the animals, so I can't recommend that. But let's say, for example, fur or leather, that's a biological product. So it is preferable to use biological products because they can go back into the cycle and they're regenerative, which means they grow again. Or we can take long-lasting materials. The longer lasting, the better. And one example is, for example, stainless steel. So anything that's made of stainless steel, like bottles, tumblers, cutlery, even chopsticks, can be made of stainless steel, and you can reuse them to infinity. And there are some materials, very few unfortunately, who do not lose quality over time, and even when recycled, don't lose quality.
That's a great idea. And I have a question. Someone's
Sure.
asking, who holds companies responsible for change? People can hold themselves accountable, but what about the large corporations?
Well, that is a very, very, very good question, because you know we can talk about this from an ethical perspective, and we can say the companies have to be responsible, and we as consumers have to hold the companies responsible. However, this is not happening for millions of reasons. And then there's another situation in which we have to say the government has to help to hold the corporations responsible. And in some ways, the government is already holding the corporations responsible. However, unfortunately, it is not a secret anymore, the fact that corporations and governments work together sometimes, and there's huge corruptions in some areas where companies are legally allowed to lobby and create policies in their favor. So in this sense, we cannot rely on the government to hold the corporations responsible. This is why the consumer sometimes does radical actions such as boycotting some companies like Coca-Cola but the only thing that you can actually do to force the companies to hold responsibility is the golden arrow. You have to stop creating demand. This is the only way. And people don't understand something because, of course, if you don't have the bigger picture, the perspective over all of these things, the perspective that we have as sustainability, as people who work in the sustainability or ecological area, companies and governments are the last to change because they are big because there are many levels of management and of decision making. People, individuals are the fastest to change. So change always comes from bottom up. Always. Like 100%.
Well, that makes sense.
Right?
I mean,
Like,
yeah,
right?
we feel like we don't have power, but we do.
Exactly. We have enormous power. And I'm going to take an example, a very simple example, which is same-sex marriage. It did not, like, the government didn't suddenly say, oh, we're going to allow same-sex marriage right now because it's the right thing to do. No, it was millions of people parading, millions of people, of activists, or people sharing on social media, pushing the government to change, pushing the companies to create products which are, made for LGBT communities and stuff like that. So change always comes from the user and the citizen. That's what I want you to understand, that we have the power to create change.
Well, that's very true. I'm glad you said that again. That's a great reminder.
Yeah. And we think we are powerless, but what we don't understand is the fact that both governments and corporations, especially corporations, they depend on us. They depend on our money, on our wallets, on our not on ideas, on our values. So if we as consumers have certain values and we want to show those values through our purchases, then the companies and the governments will only have to adapt. They have no choice. But if we just become complacent and we just say, oh, well, we're okay like this. I mean, it's not a perfect product. It's polluting and everything, but yeah, it's okay. It's at least is good for me personally. Then of course the companies won't change, the governments won't change. I mean, why would they change something that is already working for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we really need to put our money where our mouth is. Yeah. If we go back to, I mean, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I'm just thinking about how I can change things. One time I was making my own detergent, and so I'm going to go back to making my own detergent. That really worked. I made it like in a big, one of those 5-gallon buckets. And I thought, well, why am I not doing that now? So that'll be one shift. So whoever's watching, think about one shift you can make and put it in the comments.
Yeah, definitely. Or tell me what you're already doing and it's working for you and it makes you feel good about, doing the right thing, or about going against the grain, going against the status quo. I want to see that.
Well, we're doing this bag thing, an orange bag program, which is new, which is supposed to be, hopefully, who knows if it's working, but it's supposed to be recycling all the like straws and then the plastic bags that all the plastic bags and even the produce things. But I don't know. I hope that they're doing it. You never know if it's really, I mean, what's happening? They say you're making a difference, and then you find out, well, like you told us today, that not everything, well, of course, nothing's 100%. But it's just, I always felt better about that. But it's better not to buy the things with the bags in it, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, like I said, you cannot rely on the governments or on the corporations. You have to, unfortunately, right now in this moment in time, we have to do the hard work. We are pushed to do the hard work because we have allowed the corporations and the government to get away with a lot of stuff because of unintentional and intentional ignorance. So I want to take this moment right here to congratulate you guys for being here and for trying to educate yourself on this stuff.
Yeah, it's really, I'm so excited that you could come educate us. And someone's saying eating a vegan diet better for the environment, and that's very true. I'm a vegan, and yeah, I feel good about that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's difficult, I'm a vegan too personally, And it's difficult to talk to people about veganism from a environmental perspective, because it is so ingrained in our culture. It is like I said, it's such a cultural thing. It is such it's something that impacts a person very directly, because it affects their very basic need of eating, right? So it is hard to tell a person who has been, living their life until today, doing their life this way, and then suddenly tell them, well, your life has been a lie. Everything you've been doing is a lie. You've been doing everything wrong. You're immoral and stuff like that. It's very difficult for people, right? So, um, it is a journey, because mm, in order to create change, and I can show you a totally different presentation, but I don't think we have time. It is very difficult to change people. So I wish everyone here today to understand that change will happen in very slowly at first, and suddenly it will become very fast, very fast, very fast, very fast. And that's called exponential growth.
Well, that's interesting. What you're saying, and yeah, one of the reasons that I'm a vegan is because of like the factory farming and all the waste that's going into the toxic, ness of the animals into the environment. There's no filtration there, and that's kind of a good way to say it. I mean, and then the hormones and all the cramped, just unhealthiness that the people are. I mean, that the government, is allowing, and it's not exposed. I mean, just for your own health. And people don't want to hear a lot of times, and they're not aware though. I mean, because you're right. This is what they grew up with. They don't understand. I mean, in the past, we didn't have all that toxic, the factory farming. So it wasn't like that. And so now we're destroying the earth. We're hurting animals. We're destroying ourselves. So, I mean, people, when you say you're a vegan, a lot of people think you're nuts and they don't want to hear it. But it's not just about that. It's a whole, the whole thing. It's about your health, the animal's health, the environment, the earth, all of it. So it's something, that also when people hear it, they might just hear a tiny bit like today, and then maybe tomorrow they hear a little bit more, and then I'll, like you said, a little, and then to just take off. So so I mean, by being good examples, and that's also they get curious and kind of like one, and so I guess that's a good way to do it. I mean, being a good example so that people can be curious about it.
Yeah, that's 100%. Yeah, I mean, and everybody has different speeds. There are people like my friend who the first time she saw Cowspiracy, I really recommend Cowspiracy if you haven't seen it. She, like, the second day she went vegan. Like, it wasn't even a process for her. It was just like right. And then there's people like me who, I grew up on a farm, and I remember my grandma, she took care of the cows. Well, we only had 2 cows. And then the cows would go and graze, and then the cows would come home by themselves, would open the gates by themselves, will go in the shed by themselves, will let my grandma milk them without being chained. So you didn't have to chain the cow to milk it. And then my grandma would take just like half a bucket of milk, and then she would release the calf, and the calf would continue to drink the cow's milk, right? And everybody was happy. Right?
Yeah.
So I came from that background, and it was difficult for me to go vegan from an ethical standpoint when I knew that the animals aren't abused in theory. But then I had to see the all factory farming and killing the cows, and torturing them and killing the cows, and that's what made me go vegan, right? The cruelty.
Yes. Well, someone's saying,
Mhm.
documentary Plastic Wars helped me focus in on doing better. I don't think I've seen that one. And then someone else said, what are some other suggestions you can share that we can do now to make a difference?
Right. Let me see what I have in this presentation. And if I don't have anything, I'm going to quickly open up a presentation I'm working on right now and just go through it really fast. So I said that the products, the first thing you can do is to collect and use the products that are already made from waste. So instead of taking the raw materials, we just we collect them, right? The gray little car. And then we prefer biological materials over, over technical materials. And then we try as much as possible to keep the loop smaller, which means to use long-lasting products like stainless steel or metal, iron cast pans, right? Anything that lasts longer. Another thing that we can do is that we can try to prolong the life of our products in the sense that we can maintain them very well. Like if you Google how to keep your smartphone battery longer, you can find a few suggestions that help you keep your smartphone for a longer time. And I'm telling you, I'm using a Chinese phone. It's called Huawei. And I've had it for 5 years maybe, and it's working perfectly. I mean, it's a Chinese product, but still, it's amazing. And then try as much as possible to repair. In most cases, when you ask a company to repair a product, it costs as much or more than a new product. Even if it costs as much as a new product, it is never better to buy a new product. Of course, it's more convenient, the product is better. But then think about the fact that when you buy an electronic device, like a computer, for example, like a laptop, you don't just buy a laptop, you pay for a whole bunch of environmental problems. So the true cost of a new laptop is much, much higher from an environmental standpoint than repairing an already existing device.
Well, Eileen is saying hello, and she says her partner salvages and repairs everything where possible. That's great, Eileen, and thanks for watching.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Maybe he can open a shop, like a little repair shop. That would be so cool.
That would be great.
Yeah, and then he can open more, hire people to train the people to repair stuff and then hire them. And then, you can scale it up. So a social business was born today.
Right. Maybe my brother could do that too.
Right? We have to be careful about, and I want to talk about compostable or biodegradable products because this is a huge greenwashing potential. It has huge greenwashing potential. When a company says that a product is biodegradable, it does not mean it's compostable. What's the difference between biodegradable and compostable? Biodegradable, it means, as the name says, that it degrades in biological compounds. Like, for example, wood is biodegradable because if you put it in soil, it degrades in whatever natural compounds it degrades in, like cellulose and water and CO2 and stuff like that. Now, the difference is that biodegradable can mean millions of years, okay? For example, plastic is technically biodegradable. The only problem is that it degrades in many, many smaller parts that are called polymers. And if you try really hard, you can break those polymer chains. And so you can technically say that it's biodegradable, but that's not really what we want, right? So in the same way, for example, biodegradable plastic, bioplastic, which is technically made of plants, that's why it's called bioplastic. It biodegrades, but if you ask people like, what does it biodegrade in? It biodegrades in polymers, and polymers are artificial. So that's one thing. Yeah,
Oh,
that
well,
we
I
have
have
to take
something.
care.
I got something. I had
Yes.
a to-go container from a restaurant. It said it breaks down in 3 months. So it's sitting out in the
Yeah.
yard. I keep waiting. I just saw it the other day, and it doesn't look like it's breaking down. Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to try to. I mean, I know I think it's been at least 2 months. I can't even remember when I got it. So it's probably been 3 months, and it looks like it's still in good shape. So I thought it said 3 months. What's going on? It doesn't look like it's breaking down. So I'm going to. Well, I'm wondering now. Anyway, that just made me think
Well,
a
I'm
lot.
gonna tell you why this is happening,
Okay.
because biodegradable, like I said, is not the same thing as compostable. Compostable means it breaks down into soil. But even compostable, it breaks down into soil in certain conditions. You cannot just put that material in your yard and just wait for it to decompose, because compost needs a lot of elements. It needs at least two types of materials, and we call them white materials and brown materials. But I think like every country or every industry has its like own naming, which means that you cannot just put one type of material. If you just put only paper, it will not biodegrade. You need paper, but you also need maybe leaves. You also need cardboard, brown materials, right? That's why there's brown, because the color is brown. And in order to actually make soil, you also need other elements, which is temperature. If it has to be surrounded by high temperature, and the compost in itself raises its own temperature, and it also needs to be mixed. So if you still have that thing in your yard, go and bury it in the dirt and then mix it up with the dirt every 2 or 3 days.
Okay, I'm going to have to do that. Yeah, because I guess it's never
Yeah.
going to go away.
And add some dry leaves while you're at it, some dry leaves or maybe cardboard, but cardboard degrades in like longer time, so leaves are better, or twigs.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. And someone said I'm going to have to leave soon. Thanks so much for this wonderful info. So yeah, I understand that because we're going,
No problem.
we're having such good conversation. But if anybody wants to catch
It's
it,
already
up
1 hour.
yeah, the replay's up. You can always watch the end. But let's go ahead with
Right.
the story. I'm going to do that. Rechange it every few days and see if I'll let you know if it ever goes away.
Yep. And then even with the term compost, you can compost it in your yard, but there's also products that need to be composted in industrial composters. So only at really, really high temperatures or in certain very controlled conditions. And so people don't notice. So if they see compostable on the package, they think, oh, it's okay, I can just put it in my garden. But that probably means it needs to be composted on an industrial level. And who collects this stuff? Nobody collects your compostable stuff, right? So if you have to always be careful if you buy compostable products. Like, are they really compostable in your garden? And do you even have compost in your garden? Do you have the conditions to create compost in your garden and stuff like that? So we really need to think about that.
Yeah, well, I've been doing it wrong. So, and someone said, can you share the PowerPoint presentation so we can review it later?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I can share more than one. I'm going to give you the whole batch.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Now I want to talk about responsibility, and this is there are only 2 more slides left. Recycling. Oh, I said responsibility. Sorry. I want to talk about recycling. People think that recycling is a solution. Recycling is not a solution. Recycling, if you remember the butterfly, it's the last resort. So when everything else fails, you finally recycle because you have no other choice. Why is recycling not a good idea? Because when you take a product and recycle it, let's take, for example, a PET bottle. In order to recycle to create a new PET bottle from recycled materials, you need at least 20 wasted bottles. So the recycling efficiency of one bottle is only 5%, which means that the rest of the 95% is lost in the process of recycling. And that turns into waste and pollution. Because like I said, plastic is not a natural material, it's artificial, so it creates a lot of waste and a lot of pollution. Now,
That's terrible.
Yeah, so already the quality is only 5%, right? If there are some companies who boast that their recycling capacity is 30%, and that's okay, but it's still only 30%. You still need at least 3 bottles to create one new plastic bottle. Now, if we already start from a lower quality. Now imagine that when you recycle a bottle, you use the same or maybe more electricity than you would use to create one new bottle. You use a ton of water, and some materials, for example, jeans, require a lot of water, like gallons and gallons and gallons of water.
What
And
does?
then there are other, yeah, excuse me?
What did you say? What requires a lot of water?
Jeans,
Oh,
like clothes,
oh, okay.
pants, jeans. Yeah. Right. And by the way, there's plastic in your jeans, just FYI.
Oh, no. Okay, that's good
Yeah,
to know.
so yeah. You should write it down and Google it sometimes, how your jeans actually look like if you try to compost them, and how the plastic remains after the fibers have 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 dissolved.
I'll look that up.
Right, and a lot of other resources go inside, because you can't you like I said, you only use 5%, and then the rest you need to use new plastic, new oil, compounds, materials to create a recycled PET bottle. And so from this process, there's a lot of resources used in this process, and then like I said, there's a lot of pollution, waste, and other byproducts that I can't even name, that have like long, unreadable names, that are being released, that are obviously chemical, toxic. So they end up in our soils, in our air, in our landfills, or are being stored in safe locations, which keep growing and growing every day, right? And besides that, now I want to talk a little bit about microplastic and nanoplastic, because you already heard about that. There's microplastic everywhere. Microplastic is just little bits of plastic that haven't been decomposed. It's just very small bits. And nanoplastic is actually plastic particle. Well, not particles, a little bit bigger than particles. That are absolutely everywhere. They're inside you and me and all the humans on the earth. They're inside animals. They're in the air. They're in your water. They're everywhere. And I want to give you right now a very important suggestion. Never ever refill your plastic bottles with liquid that you drink, because PET bottles are single use for a reason. Once the PET bottle is not touches, what's the word I'm looking for? Has access. So once the bottle has access to air and warmth, like high temperature, like body temperature, it releases these nanoplastics into your drink. And the more you refill a plastic bottle, a PET bottle, the more those nanoparticles get released in your drink, and then they go inside your body, and they can do a lot of disruptive work. Like they can disrupt your endocrine, your hormones, and it also gets into your cells, and it blocks every cell exchanges nutrients and waste, right? Well, it blocks that exchange, and so if you consume too much plastic, you eventually create cells that don't function. Dysfunctional cells, that's the word I'm looking for. Sorry, it's late. It's 11 a.m. here, 11 p.m. Right.
That's scary. And what about like just glass? I mean, not glass, but drinking cups that are plastic. Should you stop using those?
Yes, definitely, 100%. You should stop drinking plastic. You should stop drinking hot drinks in paper cups too, because the paper cups are made in such a way that outside there's paper, but inside they have a thin plastic film so that they keep the liquid inside. And so once the hot drink touches that plastic film, it releases nanoplastic into your drink.
Well, I'm writing all this down.
Yes,
Not
please.
to
Yes.
Okay.
And also cans, like aluminum cans actually have a film of plastic on the inside.
Oh.
So if you try to melt an aluminum can, you'll get aluminum plus plastic. So
Gosh, okay. Well, I'm learning a lot here. I'm looking around my house thinking, oh no.
And another thing, aluminum cans that contain tomato juice. Never, ever, ever, ever buy that in your life. And this comes from a specialist who cans tomatoes.
Never buy aluminum cans that have tomato juice because of the acid?
Yes, it's acidic, and then it eats away the inside of the aluminum can, which is, of course, layered with plastic.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would rot. Not rot, it would rust. If it's not layered with plastic, it rusts.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it would rust. Yeah, I know. I mean, I never thought about that, but okay. I got it. I got that one down too.
Awesome. So yeah, another thing that we should do, always buy locally, always buy from local producers, always buy in season, because we have to support our small local. I don't know what happened to this slide. Why is it only half of it? We have to support our local businesses, but also the more a product travel, the more CO2 it gets released into the air because of the transportation system of the cars and the ferries and the airplanes and whatever it's transported into. So there's something that we call is counting miles. We try as much as possible to buy a product that has the less miles traveled, the least miles traveled, sorry.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So for example, I'm in Japan, and when I buy bananas, I never buy bananas that come from South America. I always buy bananas that come from the Philippines. If I could make bananas in Japan, I would, but I can't. And banana is a staple in my diet, so I can't give up bananas. So yeah, at least I try to buy them from Asia, but that's only one example of counting miles. Right, and this is the last slide, finally, where I'm going to give you the 5 tips that I've tried very, very hard in my career to compress all of the information that I have in my little brain, in my 2 brain cells, and compress it into these 5 very, 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 very general concepts, or let's call them concepts. And I've called these 5 concepts, I've called them the 0 way, which is basically a combination between zero waste. You know what zero waste is, everybody, right? And the Toyota way. And what people don't know is the Toyota way is basically a type of manufacturing that the Toyota company invented in order to cut the waste in their manufacturing system. So I just mixed these together. And also zero stands for zero waste, zero CO2 emissions, zero environmental problems, zero social problems, because this is what we should be aiming at. Why? Because every time you set a goal for everything in life, not just for sustainability, but every time you set a goal in life, it has to be as radical as possible. Why? Because if you try to achieve a goal that is very big and radical, at the end of your life, you will have traveled maybe 5%, 10%, 90% on this journey. And you can proudly say, wow, look at my incredible progress. But if you set smaller goals, like less waste, less CO2 emissions, it's very vague. And if you fail, how can I say this? If you fail big. But if you want to achieve a radical goal, if you fail a little because your progress until then has already been bigger than your failure. I know it's difficult to to wrap your head around that, but it's okay. Let's just go to the 5 concepts. The 5 concept is aim big, act small. You will find this also in the SDGs. It's basically thinking global impact. So like I said, think big, global goals, zero global waste, zero global emissions. But when you act, you always act locally. You act small in your own community. You support the people that are around you because you have enormous impact just by doing what you're doing right now with what you have and always striving for progress. You don't have to, you don't have to travel miles or do big acts to create impact. You can have enormous impact by doing really small changes in your everyday habits inside your own community. Number 2, think in cycles. You remember at the beginning of the slide, I showed you the life cycle of a product from cradle to grave, from the raw material all the way to take, make, sell, use, dispose, all the way to its grave. Always think about that cycle, that circle, the circular economy. So every product that you buy, think about it. Where does it come from? Where does it go? What is the smallest loop that I can use inside that circular economy? Can I reuse it? Can I repair it? Can I prolong its life? Can I repurpose it? And so on, before you even think about recycling. Number 3, always choose empathically. That's what I said. Choose empathically. When you go to the supermarket and you see 2 products, one next to each other, and one of them is a regular product and the other one is an eco product, but it's slightly more expensive, use the empathy that you're capable of to think the huge cost that single choice right there can do to the world. And as an example, think chocolate. You go to the supermarket, in front of you, you have 2 chocolates. The one on the left is just your regular chocolate, and the one on the right is fair trade chocolate. The fair trade chocolate is more expensive, but the fair trade chocolate, and the fair trade is a certificate where companies are forced to make sure that their supply chain, or the people that are at the beginning of the supply chain, making sure that the cocoa beans, the farmers who plant and gather the cocoa beans are being paid good wages. So when you buy, you pay maybe $1 more or $2 more for that fair trade chocolate, but those $2 can make a huge difference in the life of a cocoa bean farmer, right? So try to use your empathy and to say, wow, I'm using my $2 and I'm feeding a family somewhere in Colombia or whatever that cocoa bean farmer is.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because remember, every time you buy something, you vote with your purchases. You are sending the company a message. I want more of this product. I want you to take more responsibility. Number 4, always put people before stuff. And what do I mean by that? Human beings are born with the need to become happy. So we are constantly evolving and we are constantly living our life with the purpose of achieving happiness. And of course, happiness has many forms. It can be small daily joys, or it can be rare but very powerful um, boosts of happiness, like weddings or births. And unfortunately, in this day and age, we have put so much importance, so much focus on things, on stuff, that we literally forgot to think about the people. And the more time we spend on shopping, the more time we spend on uh, trying to get happiness through stuff, the less time we spend with our loved ones and the less we invest in our relationships with them. So I'm going to give you a really small example. Um, game consoles, right? I'm sorry for the people who are gamers or who really like to play games, but the moment you decide to buy a game console, you have erased precious time in your life that you could have otherwise used on your friends, on your family, on your kids, and so on and so forth. So always put people before stuff. Before buying a product, think about if you could use that type of happiness, like for example, going shopping for clothes, maybe that amazing new dress that you think will make you happy, maybe your friend, talking with your friend, calling your mom, or playing with your child, maybe that will bring you much more happiness than a new dress. And that's why I say here, find happiness in deep, meaningful relationships and in rich experiences. You don't have to buy a DVD for a concert, a Michael Jackson concert that I really wish uh, I had, right? Go to that concert once in your life, and you will have that memory with you for the rest of your life, and you do not need that DVD. You can just stream it on YouTube.
That's good advice.
Right. Yeah. And this fourth one, last thing I want to say about put people before stuff is that there was a research in which they interviewed 100 people just before they died. So I think it was like centenarians, like 100-year-old people. And they asked them, what was your biggest regret in life? And in the top 10, neither of them talked about money. Neither of them talked about luxury, like cars or houses, or, oh, I wish I had more cars, or I wish I had a bigger house. I wish I had more money. No, everybody said the same thing. I wish I had spent more time with my family. I wish I had fixed my relationship with my daughter. I wish I hadn't cheated on my wife and stuff like that. So they're all regrets related to relationships and experience that people had with other people. Whew. And last but not least, number 5, and I say, let your voice be as loud as possible. I told you that the change comes from bottom up, and the only way that corporations and governments can know what your needs are is by you making your voice heard. Put your money where your mouth is. Buy the products that actually are on the same level with your values, and make sure that the company knows. You can send an email or more, like I do, to a corporation. You can call a corporation, and I did that several times, and man, that was fun. You can You can send a letter to your local government. You can go to the city hall. You don't have to be, an activist. You don't have to participate in a march. You don't have to be loud, or, you don't have to be angry. It's enough for you to voice out your concerns, sharing something on social media that you're really passionate about, participating in surveys for companies, like I said, going to the city hall and asking as many questions as you can. Let your voice be heard in any way that you think possible. And I didn't write here, but it's also fun if you could actually join other people, like joining a social business, joining a nonprofit organization. Even if it's 1 hour a week, it can make a whole lot of difference. So yeah, like I said, make your voice be heard. It may not change a person, a company, or a corporation, or a government, but never underestimate the power of planting a seed. Everything in life starts with a thought, okay? Going to the moon, transplanting hearts, cloning sheep. Everything started with a what if, with a little seed that was planted in someone's mind. So my last call to action for you tonight, and this is the end of my presentation, is to live your life trying to plant as many seeds as possible. That's it. Thank you so much.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, yes, this has been very powerful. And then Eileen she said, "This is so great. Thank you." And she said, "We need to wake up from our apathy."
That's
So
right.
yeah, we do. Let me take that off right there. Okay, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this gave me a lot to think about. And you're right, because if you post it on social media, if you go, let's say we want to post something about to Exxon, right? And go post on their page. That is a seed, like Eileen is saying, plant the seeds. You're right. All the seeds matter. And the more seeds we have, they're going to grow. We might not see the growth, like when we plant a seed outside and we look down and we don't see anything growing, but it really is growing. So all of our voices can make a big difference. So this is very exciting.
Yes.
And is there any questions anyone wants to ask? But I'm trying to think. I'm going to go do, like I said, with that the thing that I didn't understand about the to-go box. Go rechange it and everything, like you told me to plant it. Shift the soil every few days and really be aware of when I'm buying. And what about glass recycling? Is that the same thing? It's 1%. 30% is max, is the best you can get.
Well, glass is different because glass is actually made of sand. Okay, so glass is made of the most common element on Earth. So it's really easy to recycle because it doesn't lose quality when recycling. So it's a bit better to recycle it. It's easier. It's not as wasteful as plastic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
It doesn't eliminate so much pollution as plastic. So it's better. It's technically better. Not the best idea to recycle, but better.
Okay. Well, I think I got a good gist of all this. And oh yeah, and then you're going to share the slides for the presentation for us. Where are you going to share that? Or
well, you let me know. Where can I put it?
Well, you can put it on the page. Put it on the page. Put all your information on here in the comments, and then if you want to make a post in the page so everybody can find you, if they want to ask more questions, and let them know, what's happening, that you want to share, if there's anything, in your group, put all that information for everyone so they can get a hold of you. So that would be great. Awesome. Yeah, and then send me the email with it too, so I can share it also, because I want to repost this a lot for people that have missed it, so this is wonderful. And then Eileen's saying she'll watch from the start because she joined late. Yeah, so wonderful.
Thank you, Eileen.
Yes, thank you, Eileen. Thanks everyone for watching. And well, we really learned a lot. So thank you so much, Bianca. Maybe you can come back and educate us again on the other stuff, that all the
Anytime,
other
anytime.
presentations. Yes. All right. Well, everyone have a healthy, happy Saturday and be good to the planet always. All right. All right. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care of yourself and the planet.
Bye.